In this video for section 1.5, we're going to be talking about solving quadratic equations. So first we're going to start by defining what a quadratic equation is. A quadratic equation can be written in the form ax squared plus bx plus c, where x is going to be your variable, a, b, and c are going to be numbers. And you can set one side of the equation equal to 0. This is also called a second degree polynomial equation, and that should make sense to you because it's a polynomial, and it is second degree because the highest exponent is 2. So in this section, we're going to look at several ways of solving quadratic equations. The first method that we're going to see is factoring, and we talked about how to factor earlier. Now we're going to use factoring to solve these equations. And to use factoring to solve a quadratic equation, we need to use something called the zero product principle. And this principle says that if I have two things that are multiplied together, and I know that the product is equal to 0, then one of those two things has to be 0. So if you think about your multiplication facts, that should make sense to you. The only way that two numbers can multiply to equal 0 is if at least one of them is 0. Or both of them could be 0 because 0 times 0 is equal to 0. So we're going to use this to solve quadratic equations using factoring. So for example, if I want to solve x squared minus 7x plus 10 equals 0, I need to get the x by itself. Well, it's hard to do that when I have x squared and x, and I can't combine those together because they're not like terms. So what I need to do in order to be able to use the zero product principle is I need a product, or I need two things that are multiplied together. How do I get this into two things that are multiplied together? I factor it. So, set up my parentheses. This is a trinomial, 3 terms, and there's no number in front of x, so I'm going to set up two sets of parentheses. X goes in the first term of each, and then I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to 10 and add to negative 7. That's going to be minus 5 and minus 2. So my factored form is x minus 5 times x minus 2. Now, using the zero product principle, if x minus 5 times x minus 2 equals 0, then x minus 5, this is going to be a, equals 0, or b, x minus 2 equals 0. So, x minus 5 equals 0. If x minus 5 equals 0, 0 times anything is 0. Or if x minus 2 equals 0, 0 times whatever x minus 5 is will also be 0. Now, what I'm going to do is figure out what x would be if x minus 5 equals 0. And I do that by adding 5 to both sides. So we get x equals 5 or x equals 2. So for quadratic equations, most of the time there's going to be two possible answers. So either of these two numbers, if I plug them in for x, I'm going to get 0 on this left-hand side. So it's different from a linear equation that we saw earlier where you just get one answer for x. So 2 and 5 are my possible answers. And the way that you're going to write this in MyLab Math, they're going to give you the squiggly bracket with the box in the middle, and you're going to type the answer in separated by commas. Make sure that you don't put parentheses around this. It's tempting to make it into like an ordered pair or something. You just type the number, comma, the second number in the box. So a general process for solving quadratic equations by factoring. The first step is that you need to have one side of the equation equal to 0. If that's not the case, you need to move the terms around to get 0 on one side. Step 2 is to factor completely. And then step 3, you set each factor equal to 0. And that's using the zero product principle. And then step 4, solve each equation. Step 5, if you want to, you can check your solutions by plugging them into your original equation. So we're going to look at example 1 in the textbook here. A is 4x squared minus 2x equals 0. So my first step is always to check and see if I have 0 on one side. If I don't, I need to get 0 on one side. For this problem, that's already done, so I'm going to go to step 2, which is to factor. So looking at this, the first thing that I always want to look for when factoring is there a GCF? In this case, there is. I can divide both 4 and 2 by 2, so 2 would go on the outside, and then they also have a factor of x in common, smallest power on the variable x. So that would be 2x on the outside, and then what do I multiply by 2x to get 4x squared? And what do I multiply by 2x to get 2x? So this is my factored form. 2x times 2x minus 1 equals 0. Now I'm going to set each of those factors equal to 0 and solve. So for the first one, 2x equals 0, I can divide both sides by 2, and that gives me x equals 0. For the second one, to get x by itself, first I need to add 1, and then I'm going to divide. That gives me 1/2. In MyLab Math, they're going to want you to enter this as a fraction, so don't divide it to get 0.5, just enter 1/2. So my answers are 0 and 1/2. So in the squiggly bracket, that's what I would type, 0, 1/2. For B, now this time I don't have one side equal to 0, so that's going to be my first step. And you always want to move things over so that you're keeping a positive sign in front of x squared. That's usually the best way to do it in terms of making the math a little bit easier on yourself. So I'm going to move the 4 over by subtracting it from both sides. Now, thinking of combining like terms, it's not going to combine with 2x squared or with 7x. So it's just going to be 2x squared plus 7x minus 4. Now, this is a trinomial, 3 terms, and there is a number in front of x squared. So that needs to be a clue to me that I'm going to use the AC method. So a times c, this is a, b, and c. AC is 2 times -4, which is -8. Two numbers that multiply to -8 and add to 7. Let's see, that would be 8 and -1, positive 8 and -1. So replace the middle term with plus 8x and minus 1x. Just keeping this equals 0 on the right-hand side, just bring that down. And then I factor using grouping. So 2 groups. 2x can come out of the first pair, and that leaves me with x plus 4. What I sometimes like to do, I don't think I've shown it this way, but once I get that first set of parentheses, I can just copy that over here, because I know that it should be the same, and then I can figure out what's going to go on the outside. That can make it a little bit easier when you're doing the AC method. So on the outside here, I need a -1 in order to distribute into this and get -1x and -4. Keep my equals 0 there. Need more space. So my 2 factors, one is x plus 4, and the other is 2x minus 1. Set each one of those equal to 0 and solve. So we have 2x minus 1 equals 0 and x plus 4 equals 0. Almost out of space here. 2x equals 1. Divide by 2, I get x equals 1/2. And x equals -4. So my answers are going to be -4, comma, 1/2, or 1/2 -4. Order doesn't matter. So next you should try checkpoint number 1. Do these problems, check your answers, and then move on to the homework for this section.